be prepared for when you're ready to shift your mind, that when you hit a level that you never thought you would be able to hit, at that time, you will still feel like you didn't get to where you needed to go, and you have to keep driving your way up.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you're enjoying this show, if you're getting good value and it's helping you grow your multifamily portfolio, do us a favor and leave us a rating and review. We want to hear from you, understand what's working for you, but also would take some feedback on anything we can do to make you work harder for your investing goals. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. We've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Chris Stout. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button today. Christopher Stout is responsible for overseeing and leading all operations at StoutCap. Stout has been a multifamily real estate investor for over a decade and is a master operator with over 20 years of experience in the residential construction industry. Now, Stout has used his knowledge and expertise to transition his career from construction to real estate investing. This transition ultimately led to the creation of StoutCap. Let's welcome to the show, Chris Stout.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, Chris, I went over your bio at a very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Yeah. So I started about 14 years ago. I started doing small renovations, small upgrades to people's apartments. We threw an ad in the Marketeer, a couple $100 a month of advertising expense, and started doing some small work around some people's homes. Worked hard enough that I was able to save $100,000. That was always a number, 100, 100, 100. And I started buying 2-family houses in New York. So I would just keep grinding, come up with enough money to buy a 2-family home, and then repeat the cycle. And I thought that was the extent to wealth. I thought that just doing that over and over and over was going to get me to where I needed to be. So kept repeating that. The renovation business grew on its own. That business grew into a custom home building company. So I started building custom homes for people and continued to take all the profits and turn it into rental real estate. When I first started investing in rental real estate, I didn't know that it would be able to take me this far, one. And at the time, I actually questioned its ability to take me anywhere, because when you first buy any piece of real estate, you kind of look at it and you're like, nah, I don't know. Seems like it's okay. Doesn't seem like it's, the greatest thing ever. And I guess the problem is people don't realize how quickly time moves. So basically grew that custom home building company, leverage those relationships for those people because when you build a custom house for somebody, for anyone who's listening, if you've done it before, you know that you're either building a relationship or you're killing one. So leverage those relationships, did great for people. Leverage relationships, turn them into investors to help the spec building company. So then building for sale. So I went out and built 4 or 5 houses in New York, built them to sell. And one of those investors knew that I took all of the profits and everything that we made and put it into investment real estate. So he said, this is great, but the money comes back too quick. So then it's almost like I'm working for my money again. It's not working for me. I'm like, in my head, I was like, I thought, this is what you wanted. He's like, I thought it's what I wanted too, but the money comes back just too quickly. Maybe I could get into your apartments. And I'm like, no, that's for me. I'll just keep that for myself, and we'll keep you in the lender / partner world of building spec homes. And I went home that night and I was like, man, I think I might have made a mistake there. And at the time I was closing a deal in New York. I'm like, you know what? Become a partner on this deal. And it took a lot for me at the time because at the time I didn't realize the power of partnering and leveraging other people and other people's money. Uh, I thought I had to keep everything for myself. And, to a certain extent, I probably still battle that a little bit when it comes to hiring employees and growing the company. It's like an internal thing that I feel like I always have to battle. But um, started leveraging and then basically just took the whole business model of apartments being second and everything else being first to apartments being first and everything else second. So I no longer do renovations. I only do some spec building, and it's the rest of it is all apartments and syndication.
I love it, Chris. Let's recap some of that, right? So 14 years ago, you kind of got into this very humbly, right? Just starting doing some small renovations here and there, some homeowner type projects, started saving your money, growing that a little bit, saved up $100,000, bought your first 2 unit in New York, and kind of just repeated that play, right? Just doing that over and over, stacking your money, going out there, finding investment. That ended up growing into a full-on renovation business. That full-on renovation ended up growing into kind of a spec house development, and you were using some private lenders or private capital to fund those deals, which is pretty common. Anybody who's flipping or doing big projects like that, usually you're going to hard money lenders or private money lenders and sourcing those deals. So that usually isn't that challenging for people. When it comes to the equity side, though, and raising capital, that's where it starts to be a little bit of a shift, right? Because now it's not just flat terms, hey, 10%, whatever it is. Now they've got some equity in the project. And you mentioned that one investor said, hey, listen, this is nice and it's working, but the money's coming back too fast. I would actually prefer to have my money not come back as fast, and maybe I can get into some of your apartment deals. And you faced a little hesitation with that. I want to go to that moment because, whether you're a flipper or, again, most people listening to this have an interest in scaling a multifamily portfolio, but maybe they haven't come completely to the realization that there is power in partnerships, there is power in raising capital, and that you mentioned that even still, you kind of are somewhat conflicted with sharing that and bringing other people into the fold. Talk to me about that inner conversation you had where when you talked to the guy, you kind of said, nope, hey, this is for me only. Sounds like you thought about it more that night and eventually came to the conclusion that you wanted to partner with that person. Talk to me about kind of that mental transition for you.
So I'll tell you, so at the time, even when I made the decision to move forward with it, I still didn't believe in its power, and I still didn't believe that it was a good decision at the time.
Mm.
And really, what was the turning corner for me was because, like I said in the beginning, like when you first look at any rental deal, you look at the numbers of what month one, we call it month 1 through 6, or even month 1 through 12. When you look at it, you're like, I don't know, I guess seems like an all right return. Then you drag out the P&L and you're like, okay, year 4, 5, and 6 are cranking. So I had to take what I already saw from months 1 through 12 and say, you know what, I'm going to share half of that. I'm going to share 70% of it with somebody else. Do I really want to do that? And with when I went home that night and I changed my mindset on it, the main reason for me changing my mindset and just pushing through with it was when I use my own money, 100% of my own money, 100% of it towards something, whatever it be the spec building or apartments, I'm technically out of business immediately after that deal closes. So I could be Jeff Bezos and have billions of dollars. If I want to buy New York City real estate, say, which I don't do much of anymore, like we focus in the Southeast and the Midwest, similar to you. But if I want to start, say, in Southern Manhattan or say Brickell, Miami, I'll get a quarter of a mile into Miami and I'm out of money. What do I do now? So, in the business of owning and saying, look, I'm a good operator. I could buy stuff. I could find good deals. I'm a good operator. Well, now if we start leveraging other people, well, now there's no end in sight. We could just buy forever. And most of our profits goes to our investors. We retain a small part of a big chunk. So just do that over and over and over. And it was actually another thing I heard from Jeff Bezos. Let's see if I can remember the numbers. At the time, I think he said Amazon was worth $1 trillion. And I believe he said, and the numbers might be off, but the concept is there. I think he said at the time Amazon was worth $1 trillion. He retained 20% ownership of the company, which means he was worth 200 billion. But it means that he created $800 billion worth of wealth for others. And that is why he made the 200 billion. So it's about creating wealth for others and you just sharing a small bit of a really big pie. And that is how you truly become wealthy. So that whole concept, I bought into it and I'm like, okay, let's go and let's try this. Because the first time I dove into real estate and I didn't think that it was going to be able to get me to where wanted to go, but I just closed my eyes and went for it. It wound up panning out very well. At the scale that I was doing it, it panned out well for that scale. So in the whole scope of where I'm trying to go now, you look back and you're like, it was still kind of peanuts, but I wouldn't have been able to start and get going where I wanted to go if I didn't start where I started.
I think there's some listeners who really need to hear you say that. And it's interesting because my journey is a little bit different, but I think I reached that same point. And I love the way you phrased it up to say, once you kind of spend all your money on this investment, you're pretty much out of business. And that's what I faced. We were buying a 2-unit building, a 3-unit building, an 8-unit building. And the problem was, once I wrote that check, I had a little bit of money for reserves and operations, but I didn't have money to go out and buy another property. So my business was pretty much shut down until I could save up more money to go out and buy another one. And after a while, you realize that it's just not sustainable. You're not going to hit your goals with that strategy. And if you do, it's going to be 10, 15, 20 years in the future, and you will have missed a huge opportunity. But your point on not being selfish with it and looking at how much value you can create for other people, for that investor who is looking for, again, probably returns and some other things, right? By getting into those apartment deals, that gave them more of an opportunity to get some of the results they were looking for. And if you are looking at your business and maybe you want to scale, maybe you want to grow, I think you really need to think about the benefit you can provide by partnering with other people. It's easy to look at what you get out of it and maybe think about the pros and cons from your standpoint. But I love your Jeff Bezos analogy where it's like, yes, by creating this company, I've created 200 billion for myself, but let's not ignore that I've created $800 billion worth of wealth for other people. And I think that's really the big takeaway here is that if you can be willing to share, then there's no limit to what you can grow. If you try to do it all by yourself, then there is absolutely a capacity of what you
Capped
can
out.
do, right?
Yeah.
You're definitely capped, whether it's from a time standpoint, whether it's from a capital standpoint, but there's absolutely a ceiling if you're doing it by yourself. But if you are building this as a business and you're bringing on partners and you're bringing on other resources, then there's no limit to what you can build. So it is a mindset shift, and it takes time to get there, and it's a challenge for people. Just to reiterate that point, I guess for you, like that night or when you made that decision, I mean, were you watching videos or reading something on Jeff Bezos? Like, what helped you trigger to say, you know what, I'm thinking about this the wrong way, let's do it?
Uh, I think the Jeff Bezos thing came after, and it was simply if I close on this building by myself, I'm out of business. I won't be able to get the next one until I saved up another big chunk of money, which at the time I was writing $1 million check for that building. And the guy came in, I'm like, all right, give me 500. I'll go in for 500 and let's do this. And because in my head, I already had another deal that I wanted and I was looking at. And I was like, oh, if I do this, I'm going to be able to go get that other deal. Where originally it was, and I actually still own both deals, by the way. Originally it was one or the other. And I'm like, oh, if I do this partnership, I could go get that other deal. Um, and then I did that one alone. But it was the start of it, right? So, going and getting a deal now by myself. And I'll tell you the truth, once in a while in the syndication business, and it's just because we're in the real estate business, like right now, we're active in Northwest Arkansas. So we just closed a deal with partners in Northwest Arkansas, 56 units, which is small for us. But I think right now, for anyone listening that's in the 100 unit plus category, um, there are very, very little opportunities in the 100 plus unit world. So we've seen some opportunities open up in the 50 to 60 unit world. So instead of not doing anything, we're doing them. So another opportunity opened up close by that we're able to purchase a 24 unit townhouse community. So 24 independently deeded townhomes. Um, we're not going to syndicate that deal. It's just, we have capital in the company just because we do good business, we make money. We're going to close on that and just throw it into the mix as our own. But for the most part, everything I do now, literally everything I do comes with partners. And I heard something from Grant Cardone, and I've learned a lot of real estate stuff from him. Most of it, I'll listen to probably about 90% of what 80% of what Grant says. Some of it, you have to filter out some of what anyone says. But something about sharing wealth within a company is the other side of it. So you have to share wealth with other investors, your other partners, investors in the real estate, and then you have to share your wealth with your employees. And one way I asked Grant once, how are you comfortable, like as you're growing, you're running into employees that may not be the best. And you're like, keep playing catch up. Like, I hired a guy, fired a guy, hired a guy, fired a guy. And I'm just sitting at the like 1, 2, 3, 4 employee thing because I can't. And his answer is just flood it with employees, just keep hiring. And then the bad guys will flush themselves out. So I know I got off track there a little bit, but that's like just the sharing the wealth thing and just keep pushing stuff away and the more comes back. It's a weird concept, but exactly. Hopefully I didn't get off too much on a tangent there, but I think you know what I'm saying.
It's the abundance mindset, right? It's not
Yeah,
being so
right.
limited to, hey, I've got to find the right person for this role right now, but you're thinking about it to say, hey, eventually this is going to work itself out. Let's bring in the amount of resources we need to get this thing solved, and
Yeah,
having more of that abundance mindset that creates that opportunity for you.
that's a better way of saying it. Yeah.
Talk to me about the portfolio right now, right? So we'd spend a lot of time talking about kind of where you started and kind of that first, partnership deal. Where's the business right now?
So I could tell you, and something interesting. So it's actually culminated probably off of over 24 months of effort in the direction of what we spoke about. So a mindset shift, but it went from 10 million acquired solely by myself to 50 million total now. And that happened in about a year and a half time frame, the 10 to 50 jump. It took 10 years to get to 10 million. And it took a year and a half, call it a solid year of acquiring to get from 10 to 50. So, but like I said, there was probably about 6 months to a year of effort prior to that jump of just working, grinding before it blew up and it went from 10 to 50. So it'll be almost in a period of 2 months, it'll be almost 60 million. So yeah, it was just that mind shift that went from 10 to 50 million. And for you to tell me 5 years ago that I'd be controlling $50 million worth of real estate today, I would say you're crazy. And the funny part is, and I don't know, sometimes I'm like, should I tell people this or not? But the mind shift, you just be prepared. Be prepared for when you're ready to shift your mind, that when you hit a level that you never thought you'd be able to hit, at that time, you will still feel like you didn't get to where you needed to go, and you have to keep driving your way up. So when say you own a $300,000 real estate deal right now, and you're listening to me say, I own 50 million, it feels no different from owning one $300,000 deal as it does controlling $50 million. If you're a driven person, you're just going to keep going. And I think the best advice for anyone who really has a goal in their mind or doesn't have a goal in their mind is to develop a goal, because developing a goal, and this is a mistake I made when I was younger, I didn't develop a goal. So my idea was just work as hard as possible and make as much money as possible. And someone's like, well, what's your goal? I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm just going to keep working as hard as I can. Like, no. You got to develop a goal. So it's not, developing a goal doesn't help you do what you need to. It helps you not do what you're not supposed to be doing. So if you're like, I want to get to $100 million, like, okay, buying $300,000 houses is not going to get you there. So probably one of the most difficult things, how about this? Over my growth, some of the most difficult things I've done is stop doing things. like I was buying two-family homes to start. And so now I'm in the two-family house world in New York. So now Staten Island, New York specifically, you're in a small market. You become the guy. You become one of the players in the market, and you're getting the phone calls. So if you make a decision that you're ready to rock and roll off to the next level, you're going to keep getting those phone calls. Hey, Chris, we have this great deal, two-family house. And you have to say, no, thank you. Don't even tell me about it. I don't care. Like, it's a great deal. I don't care. And then, some people have told me, like, you still should kind of take those and maybe pass them off to someone and make a few bucks in the middle. Like, yeah, sure, maybe. That's just not the way I did it. And I had to sell myself on the idea that just, it's not going to get me to where I need to go. If there's 50 or 100 grand sitting there, someone else could have it. It's not going to get me to where I need to go. And so saying no and turning away things that won't get me to where I need to go was probably the hardest part of growth.
Chris, I really like the way you phrased that up. You talked about the importance of developing a goal, and not necessarily so that you can accomplish whatever this big goal is. I mean, that's part of it. I have a mentor who says, you want to create 50-50 goals, and 50% of the goal is, or the relief or satisfaction you get is actually achieving the goal. But 50%, the other 50% is the process and the journey leading along that way, meaning that even if you don't actually hit that goal, whatever it took for you to be on that journey is worth it and fulfilling enough that you are going to grow and continue in the right direction. So again, if you're trying to lose weight, for instance, if that's the goal, let's say you put 20 pounds as a goal. Well, if you're working out and eating better and getting up early and all of those, even if you don't lose 20 pounds, let's say you lose 12 pounds, you should still be in a much better place than where you started, right? So those 50-50 goals make sense. And I like the way you talked about it, where it's like, when you set these goals, yes, it's the goal itself, but it's also to help you understand what you need to avoid doing. Because I think so many times people do what's comfortable. You're going to do what's familiar, you're going to do what's comfortable. And sometimes you can get scared of those big goals, right? If you have BHAG goals, right? Those big, hairy, audacious goals, they can be scary at times. And sometimes it's easier to say, you know what, that 2-unit looks really good. Instead of chasing this 200 unit, let me do this safe and familiar 2-unit deal. And I think it's another great way to help you kind of frame up that mindset so you can stay focused on your goals. The other thing you
I
said that
like
I
that
thought
food
was
idea. I like that diet analogy, because it's not hard to eat fruit or vegetables or whatever diet you plan on going on. It doesn't hurt to eat a salad. The hardest thing about a diet is to not eat the cheesecake or not eat the big bowl of pasta. So it's funny that the hardest thing to do is to not do something, not to do something. Someone hands
exactly.
you a good, fresh salad, you're like, oh, I'll eat it. You'll probably actually even enjoy it. But to turn away the cookie on the way out the door, that's the hardest part. And that's
Yeah.
exactly it. And then you have someone saying, no, you could eat half a cookie. It's still okay. Or, just make sure that they don't use, make sure they use organic sugar. I'm making something up. But, it's the same thing of like, no, take the 2-unit and just flip it to someone and make a quick 50. Like, yeah, dude, I have to, it's the, I can't express enough of how much it's mindset. You have to get yourself to the point where that two-family is disgusting. Get yourself away from it. Anything that because for you to take that two-family house and flip it to someone, there's energy that's inserted there. For you to do that process, although it might be quick, fast money, it still requires energy and mindset, and you have to kind of go backwards to handle that. If you just get rid of it and you focus on, you're like, no, we're only buying stuff that's in the millions. I only want to talk millions. If you mess with millions, you'll make millions. If you mess with hundreds of thousands, you'll make hundreds of thousands. You mess with thousands, you make thousands. You mess with dollars, you make dollars. So, how many people get rich buying penny stocks? You hear the stories, but they're so rare and far, few and far between. If you're going to the casino and you're betting penny slots, you're not going to make any money.
Yeah. I want to go to the point you made because I think some people hear this and um, understand what you're saying, and I think some people it may be scary because we set these
Oh, it's
goals.
scary. It's
Well,
scary.
when we set these goals, I think most people set goals because they want to see a different version of themselves, right? So when you talk about owning a $50 million real estate portfolio versus maybe a $300,000 real estate portfolio, most people who set that goal of having a $50 million real estate portfolio expect their life to be very different, right? To expect themselves to be very different. And you said it's no different from having 300,000 to 50 million.
No
So
different.
I want you to expand on that point a little bit.
I'll start off with a short story, and I'll expand. But and this is the dead truth, because I've gone up the chain, and I could tell you. My sister is I'm sorry, my wife's sister is dating someone, and he's got a corporate job, that he was going to relocate from New York to Chicago. Okay. So the raise to do this was about 150,000. So I think he's making 250 now, and he's going to be making 400 when he makes the move. And I'm just telling him, like, dude, I'm just telling you that your life will feel no different. If you think that this is going to change the way you live and the way you feel inside, it's not. There will be no difference. For you to feel a difference in, it's almost like $1 million gaps. For you to feel a difference, you have to go from making like 200 to $1 million. When you go to 200 to 500, it feels no different. Your lifestyle creeps up a little bit, and all that money is absorbed. And then the other side of it is, if anything, the hunger gets worse, not better. So it's not like you're hungry for food and then you go eat 3 hamburgers and you're like, oh, I can't even look at food anymore. Imagine you eat, and the more you eat, the hungrier you get. That's exactly what happens. So if anything, if you're ready to take this journey and you want to say, when I get to 50, I'm good, the only way you're going to get to 50, and it's similar to, like, I've heard this about really anyone. Let's say like Donald Trump. Like, why does he want to run for president again? Or why do guys like that keep working? Or, what that specific, like, why is Elon Musk starting new companies? Like, he's one of the richest guys in the world. It's the hunger that got him there. So that hunger just doesn't go away one day. If he never had the hunger, he would have never gotten there. So I could tell you that as you're growing, do not think that you will eat and be satisfied. You will eat and you will become more hungry. And it's not a greed thing. It's none of that. It's, we're playing for sport. And I was on a podcast yesterday. I explained it like this. And I don't know anything about sports, so excuse my teams and getting all that wrong. But say you want the Giants to win the Super Bowl. You really want them to win. And when they win, you are so happy. You're high-fiving your friends. You're talking about it. You've been talking about it during the playoffs and prior to that and post Super Bowl the next day. Oh, my God, did you see that play? Take the person who's happiest when that happens, or maybe it's you. When that happens, you're really, really happy. That's how I feel about business and making money and being successful. So when they win the Super Bowl, you're wanting them to win the Super Bowl again next year. It doesn't dwindle. If anything, it gets worse. We want to win it 2 years in a row. So, and I feel when that happens, sports and all that, I feel nothing inside. I am dead inside when it comes to that stuff. I don't care who wins. If I watch the Super Bowl, it's for the commercials. You're lucky if you get me that far. I'm usually doing something else while the Super Bowl's on. So we're just playing a game, and making money is a game. It's probably the most difficult game. And the reason it's a difficult game is, say you do something athletic. So you play a sport or a game. You play one game that's 2 hours long, however long it is. And at the end of the game, you're like, shit, like, our defense is terrible. Like, we have to work on our defense. The problem with money and business is you don't find out you made a bad mistake until years later. And then that's when you have to readjust. So it's not like we did something for 2 hours and we're like, that's not working, adjust. If you do that in business, you're going to fail. If you do something for 2 hours and you're like, this may not be working, change, you will never get. So it is so much more difficult than playing sports, or really any other game. So the game of money and business is what's intriguing to me. And the more you win, the more you want to win.
So I want to ask this because listening to you talk, one, I hope people recognize that what you're getting at is this fulfillment that you may be chasing. Don't expect to hit some numerical figure in your portfolio and ultimately be enlightened and be a better person simply because you've grown your portfolio. That's not what we're talking
Not going
about,
to
right?
happen. No.
But obviously money creates opportunities for you to do different things and maybe make better choices and invest in yourself and all of that, right? So there's still a great purpose. With that noted, what's your why? What's your reason for doing this? Is it just for sport because it's fun, or is there a bigger purpose that keeps you motivated every day?
So that I could, the easy way out, and I think a lot of people take the easy way out with this question, and they're like, I do it for my kids and my family. I don't. And the reason I could say I don't is arguably what I'm doing right now does not better my kids. So, sure, do they live in a nicer house? Yeah. Do they? I wouldn't even say have nicer stuff, because they don't. My kids aren't walking around in any name brand. I don't have a Rolex on. We have two nice cars. My wife and I drive nice cars. We're building a nice house in the water now. Does that benefit the kids driving around in a Mercedes? No. Does it benefit them having a nice house? Like, benefit them as people having a nice house? No. The only thing, what I could say is what's benefiting them in this whole process is watching me and hearing me talk. And now my kids talk, hearing them talk, because when I was younger, the idea of $1 million was impossible. So now they're talking in millions now, and they hear me talk in millions. So that's where they're going to start. So the idea for them of 100 million is much closer than it was for me when I was younger. But I don't like to say that I'm doing it for my family, because there is a line where I could work too hard and I'm actually going backwards. Okay. So it's not for the family. My plan of spending money is for my wife and I. I'm not doing this to leave my kids with big chunks of money. We'll have a plan in place that as they grow and get older, that they're just not getting wired money to their bank account. The money will be available for them for business loans and, this kind of thing, things to better them, and it'll be planned out tightly. So I haven't fully, so outside of that, I haven't fully answered in my head why. I mean, I think my why is I want the ability to be able to travel the world and continue to work. So I don't want to be able to travel the world and finish working. I want to be able to take this show on the road and be in France and get on this podcast, or have an asset manager call and I'm naming a place. I don't know. I'm somewhere in Brazil, exploring the jungle, just naming random things. And say, all right, guys, I'll be back in a little bit. I have to go do an asset manager call. So that's in my head. That's what I think I want. So yeah.
I think the thing that's interesting is like everyone's why is different, and I appreciate you not saying that, oh, I do this just for my kids, because to your point, there is a line where maybe you're investing too much into the business. Not you, but someone
Yeah,
can do that, and actually
sure.
it's detrimental to the
I
children.
dance on that line. Yeah.
Well, and I think the reality is it's okay for your reasons to be selfish. I think sometimes people always want this very appropriate response about, oh, I
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
for you. I do it because I want to have nice things, because
Yeah.
this is the version
What's
of
wrong with that?
myself that I see. I think I'm an attractive guy. I think I want to have nice things. I want things that stroke my ego, right? It's okay to have certain things like that, but obviously, there's some elements of having that kind of wealth that you can make a difference and you can contribute and you can find ways to have an impact beyond kind of your time on this planet. So either way, I think no matter what your why is personally, you got to figure out how investing can help you achieve those goals and making sure that, this is just another tool in the tool belt to help you succeed. We didn't talk too much about Stout Capital. We talked a little bit about kind of where you're at right now. But for folks who do want to learn more, your website is stoutcap.com. They can also find you on Instagram at official stout. That's STOUT. They can find you at official stout on Instagram. Right now, we're going to go to our round of insights to learn a little bit more about you. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Buying let's see, I could say being a lightning round and I wasn't prepared, I'll just shoot out my first thought. Buying a rent-stabilized building in New York City. Try to buy real estate that the government is not in your pocket and in full control of what you do with it.
All right. Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
I have that answer. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's like, that's the start of this whole thing.
All right. Give me an app or digital resource you recommend for your business.
I have a better answer that I'm going to give you. What app helps me greatly? Let's start with basics. Make sure you have a Google Drive or a Dropbox. People don't realize the value of organization. A highly organized, cloud-based storage system where any device that's in your control is worthless. You could lose your iPad, you could lose your laptop, your phone could get crushed, and all your information is still organized in one spot. Someone could ask me for an insurance policy for any property at any moment, and within 3 seconds, it's emailed to them. Just a super level of control. And as far as other apps, we're actually exploring we're working with Slack right now. There's no other app that I want to boast on here about. We'll stick with basics. High organization and cloud-based storage.
What's a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals?
My calendar. Running a tight ship on my calendar. Making sure that I fill my calendar. And it's really my calendar and my to-do list. And I have a priority to-do list. And I try to do the hardest thing first. Get it out of the way.
There you go. All right. What is your number one insight for multifamily investing?
Realize that time moves faster than you think, and do not look at what a property returns day one. Make sure you look far out and have a far out plan. So 6 to 10 year plan, and just start executing. And as long as you execute, you will see that within a few years, those wins will start piling in faster than you could have ever imagined.
All right. And you are out there in New York. So give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Ooh, New York City food. Let's see. I could go with, oh my gosh, there's so many great New York City restaurants. It's endless. If you like, I'd probably go with Rocco's Steak. Rocco's Steak is probably the best steak in the city.
All right. We got to check that one out next time we're in the city. Listen, Chris, you gave us a lot of great information. I appreciated you sharing your journey going from doing some small renovations to get started, ultimately creating this renovation business, which led to the spec homes with the investor, that mindset shift to go from, I don't have to do this all by myself with just my own money. What if I bring in partners? What if I bring on investors and scale this into a larger business? And I think it's a big shift for a lot of people. I know it was for me. It was a similar thing, but getting comfortable working with other investors and taking on capital and being responsible for other people's money, it's a big shift. But when you do that, it opens up the world of possibilities. So I appreciate you sharing that perspective on your journey and how that's helped you go from kind of a $10 million space up to 50 million, and probably by the time this comes out, $60 million. So really great information there. Again, if you want to learn more about Chris and his company, you can check him out on Instagram at official stout, or you can check out their website, StoutCap.com. Chris, thanks again for being a great guest on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying connected with you. We hope you have a great day.
It's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.